When I learned my brother had been secretly paying our father to cut me out of the will, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt erased, like I never existed at all. You know those stories where families fall apart over money? I used to think that only happened to greedy people, to strangers, to other families, not mine. My name's Natalie. I'm 34, a freelance illustrator living in Portland. My brother Owen is 38, a finance guy, full of swagger, charisma, and fake charm wrapped in expensive cologne. We were never exactly close growing up, but we weren't enemies either. Just different. Opposites raised under the same roof. Dad always said we were two different storms. I never understood what he meant until everything blew up. Our mom died when I was 19. Cancer, fast, brutal. And after that, it was just the three of us. Dad, Owen, and me. I stayed in Portland, trying to make it as an artist. Owen moved to Chicago, made a fortune doing whatever it is rich men do, and visited maybe twice a year, always arriving with expensive wine, leather shoes, and a new story about his business empire. Dad and I weren't always perfect, but we had our own rhythm. Sunday calls, Christmas visits, random texts when he saw something that reminded him of me. I was the soft one, as he called it, the one who never really changed, just kept trying to do good. So when he got sick, lung disease, late stage, I flew back immediately. I stayed, helped, paid out of pocket when hospice started charging for comfort care. Owen, he sent flowers and a check. I didn't complain, not out loud. That's just who Owen was, detached, efficient, and always calculating. But even then, something felt off, like a tension I couldn't name. Dad was distant toward the end, not just physically tired, emotionally guarded, cold even. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me like I was a stranger. When I asked what was wrong, he'd just say, "It's fine, Nat. Just tired." He stopped asking about my life. He barely looked at the sketches I brought him. And then, out of nowhere, he started praising Owen. Constantly. "Owen's doing well. He's building something real." Owen offered to handle the estate. He said you wouldn't want to deal with that mess. It stung, but I didn't push. The day he died, Owen showed up late to the hospital and stayed for only 30 minutes. No tears, just polite nods and a short speech about moving forward. At the reading of the will, I was calm. I expected half of everything, just like Dad always said, just like Mom would have wanted. But when the lawyer read it, I froze. Owen got the house, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio, everything. Me? $1,500, and an old family photo in a cheap wooden frame. That was it. I thought it was a mistake, a joke. But then I looked over at Owen, and he smiled. At first, I didn't react. I thanked the lawyer, nodded politely, and left that office with my throat burning and my hands trembling. I didn't cry in the car. Not yet. Not until I got home, shut the door, and screamed into a pillow until I couldn't breathe. It didn't make sense. Dad had always promised everything would be fair. He said it over and over, even in the worst of his illness. "You and Owen will split it all 50-50. It's only right." I never once doubted him. And now? He gave me less than what I'd spent on his prescriptions. The photo frame sat untouched on my kitchen table for 2 days. I didn't want to look at it. It felt like an insult, like a participation trophy for the daughter who came in last place. But on the third night, after a glass too many of cheap red wine, I picked it up. It was a photo from when we were kids. Me, Owen, and Dad at the beach. I couldn't have been older than 7. I was holding a melting ice cream cone, and Owen was already taller than me, already smirking like he knew something I didn't. I turned the frame over. The cardboard backing was loose. almost too loose. I peeled it open, and that's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges, tucked between the photo and the backing. I opened it with shaking hands. It was dated 4 months before Dad died. To whom it may concern, I, Robert Langley, declare that my original intentions were to split my estate equally between my two children, Natalie and Owen. However, I am amending that decision due to personal reasons. I feel Natalie has distanced herself from the family and shown little interest in our legacy. Owen has stepped up in ways she has not. I trust him to handle things properly. Robert Langley. My stomach dropped. Because that wasn't just a note. It was a lie. I hadn't distanced myself. I had dropped everything to be there for him. I had taken care of him when Owen couldn't even be bothered to call. So why would Dad say that? Unless someone wanted him to believe it. Suddenly so many things made sense. The coldness in Dad's eyes, the praise he kept heaping on Owen, the way he'd shut down whenever I asked about the estate. I started replaying everything, conversations, reactions, patterns I had ignored. One stood out, a moment, 3 months before Dad passed, when I overheard him arguing with someone on the phone. His voice was low, clipped, furious. "I told you I'm not comfortable with this. She's still my daughter." I thought he was talking to a doctor. Now I wasn't so sure. I tried to calm myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe this was just Dad's way of coping, rewriting the story to give himself peace. But then I remembered something else. A friend of mine who worked at the bank once mentioned seeing Owen and Dad in a heated discussion weeks before Dad updated his accounts. And suddenly, it all clicked. This wasn't about Dad turning against me. It was about Owen making sure he did. I stopped sleeping after that. The idea that Owen had manipulated Dad emotionally was painful enough. But now I couldn't shake the possibility that it had gone beyond guilt-tripping and flattery. What if Owen hadn't just convinced Dad? What if he'd bought him? It sounded crazy, too far-fetched. But I couldn't let it go. I called my friend Melanie, the one who worked at the bank Dad used. We hadn't spoken in months, but when I explained that I suspected financial coercion, possibly even elder abuse, her tone changed instantly. "I can't show you anything directly," she whispered, "but let's just say your instincts aren't wrong." That was all I needed. The next day, I requested Dad's financial statements as his surviving child. I had to go through paperwork, identity checks, and a few sketchy customer service hurdles, but eventually I got access. When I opened the files, my stomach flipped. 4 months before Dad's death, right around the date of that note in the photo frame, he started receiving consulting payments from a company called Owen R. Holdings, LLC. $10,000, then 15, then 20, all marked as private transfers. But that wasn't all. The week Dad changed his will, another $50,000 showed up, this time labeled Support for Reorganization. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. Owen had paid Dad, on paper, legally framed as business, in exchange for loyalty, or silence, or manipulation. Maybe all three. I felt sick, not just because of what Owen had done, but because Dad had accepted it. Was he desperate, afraid, or had he truly come to believe I was disposable? There was one more detail, one that broke me. 2 weeks before Dad died, he made a final deposit, $2,000 into my account. I never noticed. It was buried under so many expenses at the time, but it was there. And the memo line? Sorry. That word hit harder than anything else, because in that one line, I knew he'd realized what he'd done. But it was too late. I stared at my laptop screen, tears blurring the text. Owen had bought my father's love, or whatever love was left. And my father, dying, maybe scared, maybe angry, had sold it. The injustice settled into my bones like cold water. It wasn't enough to cry. It wasn't enough to rage. I had to act. That night, I opened a new browser tab, and I typed, Family Estate Fraud Attorney, Portland. Her name was Monica Vega. Sharp eyes, sharper tongue. A woman who had once taken down a Fortune 500 heir for coercing his dying mother into signing over 10 properties. I found her through a legal blog titled When Family Betrayal Becomes Fraud. I called. I didn't expect a response, but she picked up. I told her everything, well, everything I could say without choking. The lopsided will, the secret letter, the shady payments, and the $2,000 sorry that burned in my soul. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, Meet me tomorrow. Bring everything. I didn't sleep that night. Again. When I walked into her office the next day, she was already reviewing the documents I had emailed. These transfers, she said, pointing at the printouts, are red flags. No explanation, no contract, no invoices. You're telling me your brother owns this LLC and your dad had no active business interests? None, I replied. He was on oxygen. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile predators make right before they strike. I've seen worse, but this is winnable. Those words felt like breath after drowning. I asked her what we needed. She said we'd file a petition to contest the will on grounds of undue influence, elder abuse, and financial coercion. We'd subpoena Owen, dig into the company, call in a forensic accountant, get testimony from Dad's doctors, nurses, even the notary who signed off on the will. And if we proved that Dad had been pressured or compensated into changing it, the will could be voided. I could get my share, but more importantly, Owen would finally be exposed. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about truth, about reclaiming the story my brother tried to rewrite behind my back. And I was ready to go to war. But wars aren't fought in courtrooms alone. They begin with whispers, side eyes, phone calls that stop when you answer. Word got around quickly. Mutual friends reached out, some cautiously, others excitedly, like they'd always suspected something shady but never dared say it. Then Owen called. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was clipped, cold, almost amused. So this is how you want to play it, Nat? Lawyers? Really? You always were dramatic. Fine. But remember, you're not just coming for me. You're coming for Dad's memory. My blood boiled. Dad's memory? Owen had twisted that memory into a lie. Bought it. Sold it. And now he wanted to use it as a shield? Not this time. I saved the voicemail. Emailed it to Monica. She wrote back in less than 10 minutes. Perfect. Let him keep talking. The day we filed the lawsuit, I felt like I was stepping off a cliff. There's something terrifying about suing your own family, especially when that family has more money, more power, and a long history of making you feel small. But there was no turning back. Monica filed the petition in probate court. Fraudulent undue influence, elder exploitation, financial coercion. We named Owen. We named his LLC. We even listed the notary who had stamped Dad's will, whose license, by the way, was already under review for a different case. I thought it would take days to reach Owen. It took hours. He got served while hosting a dinner party at his high-rise condo in downtown Chicago. The process server handed him the envelope between cocktails and steak tartare. I wasn't there, but a mutual friend texted me the next morning. He turned purple. No one stayed for dessert. I didn't feel proud. I felt justified. But what came next wasn't a courtroom drama with gavel bangs. and tearful confessions. It was discovery, depositions, redacted documents, obstruction, silence. Owen's lawyer responded with a counterclaim that I was bitter, estranged, mentally unstable, and delusionally attached to a false version of events. He submitted photos of me from my Instagram, me dancing at a concert, smiling at a bar, and argued that I wasn't grieving appropriately to justify such accusations. That hurt more than I expected. As if my laughter was proof I didn't care about losing Dad. As if smiling invalidated my pain. But Monica warned me. He's trying to make you look like the villain so no one asks what he did. The strategy was classic. Shift focus. Blur the truth. Bury evidence under personality critiques. So I stayed silent. Stoic. But the worst part came 2 weeks later. A letter. From Owen. Handwritten. 6 pages. It started out civil. I know we've never been close, Nat, but is this really what you want? Dad's gone. Fighting won't bring him back. You're hurting the family. Then it got personal. You were never the favorite, and you knew it. That's why this hurts so much. But you're not entitled to something just because you stuck around at the end. He ended with a line I'll never forget. The sooner you let this go, the sooner you can go back to pretending you mattered. I almost ripped the letter in half, but instead I scanned it and sent it to Monica. She replied 3 words. Thank you. Leverage. And I realized something then. Owen still believed I was the girl he used to bully. The quiet sister. The one who cried in her room while he charmed everyone at dinner. But that girl? She died the moment he cashed the first check. I moved out of my apartment the following week. It wasn't just about safety, it was about clarity. I packed what mattered, my laptop, the case files, a few clothes, and rented a tiny studio in a town no one would think to look. 1 coffee shop, no streetlights, just silence and space. I needed to disappear from his radar, because Owen had started pushing back harder. He filed motions, requested delays, claimed the documents were taken out of context, and I started getting weird calls, block numbers, no one speaking, just breathing. Was it him? Someone he paid? I didn't care. Let them listen. I was done being afraid. Every night I sat at my tiny kitchen table and reviewed every shred of evidence. Bank transfers, calendar entries, emails Dad sent just weeks before his death. Some were innocent, others screamed of manipulation, like the one where Dad wrote to a friend, "Owen's here again. Keep saying Natalie's too emotional to handle money." I think he's trying to protect me. But sometimes I wonder. I highlighted it, printed it, added it to the growing folder labeled Doubt. I wasn't alone. Monica was relentless. She dug into Owen's LLC, uncovered multiple shell accounts, and found a paralegal who remembered notarizing something for Dad that didn't feel right. Piece by piece, we rebuilt the truth. But the cost? I didn't go home for Thanksgiving. No one called on my birthday. Every cousin, aunt, family friend vanished. Whether out of loyalty to Owen or discomfort with conflict, they vanished all the same. And honestly, I didn't blame them. Because the Natalie they remembered, the quiet, sweet one who brought deviled eggs to Christmas and apologized for speaking too loudly, was gone. She'd been replaced by someone sharper, quieter, unyielding, someone who didn't cry over old photos anymore, someone who knew how to file subpoenas and redact her own address. Still, there were nights it got to me, when the silence felt like punishment instead of protection, when I wondered if maybe Owen was right. Maybe I had destroyed what little was left of our family. But then I'd remember Dad's voice in that video I kept replaying. "I miss Natalie. I hope she's okay." She always tried to do the right thing. And I knew I wasn't destroying anything. I was reclaiming it. Courtrooms are colder than you'd expect. Not just the temperature, but the energy. Sterile. Still. Like nothing truly human is allowed to breathe in there. And yet, that's where the ugliest parts of humanity unfold. The day of the preliminary hearing, I wore black. Not because I was mourning, but because I wanted him to feel the gravity. Owen walked in, wearing a tailored suit and a look that said, "This is beneath me." He didn't even glance my way. Fine by me. Monica was calm, calculated, the kind of woman whose voice lowered when she got serious, which somehow made her even more terrifying. We began with opening remarks. The judge, a tired-looking man with wire-rimmed glasses and the demeanor of a man who'd seen too much family drama in his life, nodded patiently as Monica laid it out. This is a case about betrayal, about a man who used his wealth and charm to manipulate a dying father and silence the daughter who loved him. And today, she's here, not for vengeance, but for truth. Owen's lawyer stood and did what I expected, downplayed everything, claimed Dad made his choices with full agency, that Owen merely assisted in financial planning, that I was a disgruntled heir, emotionally unstable, grasping for assets I didn't earn. I didn't flinch, because I knew what was coming next. Monica handed the judge the bank records, the shell accounts, the video testimony from the notary, visibly nervous, admitting she'd notarized Dad's updated will at Owen's office, with Owen present the entire time. Then came the final piece, the video. Dad's voice, soft but clear from his hospital bed, recorded weeks before he died. He's holding a photo of me and saying, "She was always there, you know, even when I didn't deserve it." I don't know why Owen keeps saying she doesn't care. That's not true. Natalie. She's the only one who stayed. I watched Owen's face the entire time. The smirk vanished, his jaw clenched. For a second, I saw something in his eyes. Panic, regret, maybe even fear. But then it passed. He leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. The judge looked up. "This is enough to move forward," he said. "There is credible concern of undue influence. We'll proceed to trial." My heart pounded, not from victory, but from finally being seen. Outside the courtroom, Owen stopped me. Just for a moment, his voice low, sharp. "You think this makes you righteous? Dad's still gone? You think any of this brings him back?" I didn't answer at first. Then I turned to him. "You didn't kill Dad, Owen, but you buried who he was. I'm just digging him back up." He didn't respond, just walked away. And I watched him go, knowing, for the first time ever, that he couldn't win this by charm, by lies, or by money. Because now, the truth was on record. It was on. The trial didn't take long. Once the judge saw the full evidence, the forged financial memos, the notary's shaky testimony, the pattern of hush money payments disguised as consulting fees, the decision was swift. The will was declared invalid. The estate was to be divided equally, as originally intended. My father's name was cleared, publicly, of the stain Owen tried to leave on it. The money was restored. My share returned. But the moment the gavel hit, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Because the truth doesn't heal everything. It doesn't bring back the people you lost. It doesn't fix the memories that now feel tainted by manipulation. Owen didn't look at me when the ruling was read. Not once. He stood still, chin lifted, like he couldn't be bothered to acknowledge it. Like he had lost a chess match he didn't care about. But I knew better. His silence was his scream. He left the courtroom without a word. And that was the last time I ever saw him. Not at the estate settlement. Not during the final asset meetings. Not when I walked out of the lawyer's office with the keys to half a life I no longer wanted. Because let's be honest, what do you do with a house that feels haunted, not by ghosts, but by gaslighting? I sold it, every piece of it, the furniture, the artwork, the backyard swing I used to sit on with Dad when I was little. I sold it all, not for spite, but because I needed to breathe in something untouched by betrayal. I bought a cabin, quiet, northern coast, no neighbors in shouting distance. I painted again, started slowly, a bird, a sky, a portrait of a woman with tired eyes and no face. Me, I didn't return calls. Family stopped reaching out, no one wanted to pick a side, and now that the court had picked mine, they preferred silence over reconciliation. And honestly, that was fine. Some silences aren't cold. Some are clean. One morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name. I opened it. Inside was a photo. Owen and me at a wedding years ago. Both smiling. Real smiles. On the back, scribbled in my father's handwriting, "Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Keep choosing love, Nat, even when it's hard." I stared at that for a long time. Then I burned it. Not because I hated him, but because I needed to stop carrying what was already gone. It's strange how grief changes. At first, it's a storm, loud, angry, all-consuming. You brace against it. You try to outcry it. Then, slowly, it becomes something quieter, like fog, still heavy, but silent, lingering in the corners of your life. That's what it became for me. I stopped expecting apologies. From Owen, from the family that ghosted me, from the friends who didn't want to get involved. I no longer needed them to understand. I had understood myself. I started going for walks in the woods near my new home. At first, it was just to escape the walls. Then it became something more, a rhythm. The kind I'd always looked for in people, but never found. The kind I had to build for myself. One morning, after the rain, I found a feather on my doorstep. White, weightless. I stood there barefoot, coffee in hand, and felt something strange. Not closure, not peace, but permission. Permission to stop fighting ghosts, to stop replaying courtroom scenes in my head, to stop wondering what might have happened if I'd just tried harder, been nicer, forgiven faster. I used to think healing meant feeling better, but maybe healing just means you stop needing the pain to mean something. I took the feather inside and taped it into my sketchbook. Below it, I wrote, "The last thing I let go wasn't Owen. It was the girl who thought she needed Owen to matter, because that's what this whole fight had been about. Not money, not revenge, but identity. The version of me who thought I had to earn love, who mistook tolerance for affection, who believed being silent meant being good. She deserved more. And so I gave her more. I painted her into a field of wildflowers, alone but alive, soft but not fragile, with no name, just color, just space. The final line of my father's letter echoed in my mind. Keep choosing love, Nat, even when it's hard. So I did. I chose to love the version of me they all left behind, and I let her become someone new. Not every story ends with healing, but some end with finally telling your truth and living with the silence that follows.